Last summer, after President Joe Biden announced that he was withdrawing from the presidential race, there was a bit of a flurry of activity, putting forth the name of Governor Moore as a possible replacement. Now, in the aftermath of the Republican victory, the drumbeats of support for Governor Moore are growing. Local papers, the Baltimore Sun, seem to be championing the idea that Governor Moore is the next Democratic star destined to be president. But Mark, like many other Democratic governors, Moore worked hard for both President Biden and then for the ultimate nominee, Vice President Kamala Harris, after the convention. But to suggest that a barely one-term governor should run for president seems like kind of a tall order.
Well, yeah, but this is the nature of hometown crowd, and I guess they probably look at, let's say, Tim Walz, and lightning strikes under the right circumstances, and there is A and B. There is really no clear favorite for the Democrats in 4 years. There's probably going to be a lot of people running, so who knows? That said, I think you said it at the outset, and we're going to talk about it in more detail. Governor Moore has a big hurdle he's got to navigate before he can be presidential, which is how does he deal with this $2.7 billion deficit? And is it going to be taxes? Is it going to be cuts? How is he going to deal with the legislature? And it remains to be seen how he'll get through that.
So, Mike, I'm going to use a sports analogy here to open up the question. Commanders quarterback Jaden Daniels looked like an all-pro when beating up on the New York Giants. But he's exposed as rather pedestrian when you come up against the Philadelphia Eagles. So Governor Moore has, he's very telegenic and he's got good political instincts. But in comparison to Gavin Newsom or Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro and Michigan's Gretchen Whitmer, he's going to have to deal with some heavy opponents here.
Sure. No, I think that's right. I think you underestimate Jaden Daniels a little bit. I think he's still going to be, by the end of this season, we're going to see that he actually is the real deal. I think to have a step, I'm not even saying last night was even a setback. I think the Eagles are a good football team and they showed that. So we'll see where that all plays out. Nevertheless, sure, I think there's going to be a lot to be shown and a lot to be done in the coming years. I think the notion of him being a first-term governor, the president-elect had no government experience when he was elected the first time. President Obama had been a state senator. I think we see lots of indications in recent past where necessarily having been in what would have typically been a traditional pathway and having done that for a while successfully is your path forward. I'm not sure that the people necessarily care about that as much as they once did. So I don't think that that's going to be the issue. I think the issue will be, how do people start to emerge? What are the characteristics that they can identify that they've been successful achieving? I think certainly the budget deficit that Governor Moore is going to see is going to be challenging. There are going to be some difficult things. And I think if we see fewer dollars coming from the federal government as a result of the current administration, I think that adds to the challenge. And I think the real focus is going to be how does he lead Maryland to regenerate economic growth that we've not seen a lot of in the last 4 or 5 years?
So going back to Mark, this budget issue, this $2.7 billion deficit, is an issue that Governor Moore has to deal with because he prepares the budget that's submitted to the General Assembly. But he also has to rein in the impulses of the General Assembly. And has he shown an interest in doing that?
I think it's fair to say that largely we have kicked the fiscal can down the road, in part because of the COVID relief money. We had more flexibility for the last couple of years in being able to fund things, and have been moving money from one year to another. That's really about to hit, and that's going to be the challenge that both he and the legislature are going to face. And you're right. I mean, if you remember this year, the legislature, there was a real split between the state Senate and the delegates as to how to handle it. And it'll be interesting how that plays out in next year, and also how the governor comes out in that whole equation.
Well, the albatross around our neck is I don't know, is it Kerwin or Thornton, or which educational non-funded educational plan are we dealing with, Mike? I'll let you have the last word.
No, I think that's going to be the issue we're going to have to address, is how do we manage through the blueprint and try and chart a path forward for Maryland schools in a way that can be cost effective and allows us to be successful. And I think that's going to be the real challenge. And I think people's going to have propensity, and you alluded to this in the county executive, and I think with the governor, to look at taxes. And I think there are going to be enough other changes out there that for people to jump to taxes this year, I think puts us in a real bind, because I think it limits flexibility to address the challenges that we don't yet know.
And well, here's one challenge. They want to knock down the Bay Bridge and build two brand new spans across the Chesapeake Bay. Who's going to pay for that bad boy?